Hello, I will now continue the series on the health reform vision given to Sister White in 1863. I was shown that more deaths have been caused by drug taking than from any other sorry. I was shown that more deaths have been caused by drug taking than from any other causes combined. What a statement. Is this true? It is indeed a radical statement, but I know that the things that Sister White wrote were given to her by God. So God, through His Spirit, showed her these things. And here she says, I was shown. So for me, what God has revealed is above the science of the day. God is way ahead of the scientists of the day. I will continue. If there was in the land one physician in the place of thousands, a vast amount of premature mortality would be prevented. So, do we have too many doctors? That's a question to ponder. Multitudes of physicians and multitudes of drugs have cursed the inhabitants of the earth and have carried thousands and tens of thousands to untimely graves. Another very interesting statement. This is the servant of the Lord writing based on what was shown her by the Lord in vision. Have we ever considered these things? Multitudes of physicians and multitudes of drugs. Would we be better served by less physicians and less drugs based on the way they work? Important question to ponder. Indulging in eating too frequently and in too large quantities overtaxes the digestive organs and produces a feverish state of the system. The blood becomes impure, and then diseases of various kinds occur. A physician is sent for who prescribes some drug which gives present relief, but which does not cure the disease. It may change the form of disease, but the real evil is increased tenfold. So here she see the downward spiral, so to speak. A person who eating too much, indulging too much, then when they feel sick, instead of fasting, resting themselves using the natural means, they send for a physician who prescribe some drugs, or expecting them to prescribe some drugs that would provide benefit. But does it provide benefit? That's the question. Nature was doing her best to rid the system of an accumulation of impurities. And could she have been left to herself, aided by the common blessings of heaven, such as pure air and pure water, a speedy and safe cure would have been effected. So in many cases, a cure may be effected speedily by using the natural things that God has provided, such as pure air and pure water. Let me put my disclaimer in here that the purpose of this, of Read and Talk Health, is not to practice medicine or to prescribe any drug or to deal with anyone's illness. It is purely for educational purposes only. The information that is shared is not to practice any medicine, not to deal with your personal situation. You know, what you do with the information is your responsibility, right? Glenn is not practicing medicine or prescribing any means of treatment for your case. Continuing. The sufferers in such cases can do for themselves that which others cannot do as well for them. They should commence to relieve nature of the load they have forced upon her. They should remove the cause, fast a short time, and give the stomach chance for rest. Reduce the feverish state of the system by a careful and understanding application of water. So these things we need to learn how to use. Water is more than for drinking. There are ways that water can be applied to check disease and bring recovery from sickness. So in many cases, when we have overindulged ourselves in eating or working, it is the 8 laws of health that would give us that will allow nature to bring about a speedy recovery. The use of the nutrition, the use of the exercise, the use of water, the use of sunlight, temperance, the use of air, rest, and trusting in God. If we trust in God really, many of the drugs that we use, we would not use them. These efforts will help nature in her struggles to free the system of impurities. But generally, the persons who suffer pain become impatient. They are not willing to use self-denial and suffer a little from hunger. Neither are they willing to wait the slow process of nature to build up the overtaxed energies of the system, but they are determined to obtain relief at once and take powerful drugs prescribed by physicians. Right? So here, drugs prescribed by physicians are highlighted again. But physicians cannot force us to take drugs. It is we who take them. We have to consent to take them. So this information is should at least prick our conscience to let us understand that there is a better way. Nature was doing her work well and would have triumphed, but while accomplishing her task, a foreign substance of a poisonous nature was introduced. This is the drug that is being mentioned. What a mistake! Abused nature has now two evils to war against instead of one. So now nature has to deal with the poisonous substance, the drug that is introduced into the system, and also the sickness that was brought on by intemperance. She leaves the work in which she was engaged and resolutely takes hold to expel the intruder newly introduced into the system. Nature feels this double draft upon her resources, and she becomes enfeebled. So, this is the effect of the drug use on the system to bring feebleness rather than health. Drugs never cure disease. What a statement. It is an important statement to consider the next time you pop something in your mouth, some drug. Consider this statement, which is coming from what the servant of the Lord, which is coming from the servant of the Lord. So, which is coming from the Lord through his servant. The Lord says in the book of Isaiah 55, I think, he says that his ways are higher than our ways. So we have been educated to think that the drugs is the answer to our sickness problem. But based on what the Lord is showing us here, the drugs does not cure any one of disease, and in many cases make the situation worse. Drugs never cure disease. They only change the form and location. Nature alone is the effectual restorer, and how much better could she perform her task if left to herself? But this privilege is seldom allowed her. If crippled nature bears up under the load and finally accomplishes in a great measure her double task, the patient lives. And the patient lives, the credit is given to the physician. But if nature fails in her effort to expel the poison from the system and the patient dies, it is called a wonderful dispensation of providence. If the patient has taken a course to relieve overburdened nature in season and understandingly used pure soft water, this dispensation of drug mortality might have been wholly averted. The use of water can accomplish but little if the patient does not feel the necessity of also strictly attending to his diet. Many are living in violation of the laws of health and are ignorant of the relation their habits of eating, drinking, and working sustain to their health. So that is something that we have to pay attention to. Many are living in violation of the laws of health. So there are laws of health that we need to live in harmony to. And even though we may be ignorant of them, yet the result follows our actions. They will not arouse to their true condition until nature protests against the abuses she is suffering by aches and pains in the system. If even then the sufferers would only commence the work right and would resort to the simple means they have neglected, the use of water and proper diet, nature would have just the help she requires and which she ought to have had long before. If this course is pursued, the patient will generally recover without being debilitated. When drugs are introduced into the system, for a time, they may seem to have a beneficial effect. A change may take place, but the disease is not cured. So, many times we take drugs, and this is the deception in it. It seems as if it is doing something good for us. A change may take place, but the disease is not cured. Why? Because the drugs cannot cure any disease. It is nature, through obedience to the laws of health, proper diet, the use of air, exposure to sunlight, exercise, temperance, trust in God, rest. These are the true doctors. These are the things that will help nature to bring about recovery. It will manifest itself in some other form. In nature's efforts to expel the drug from the system, intense suffering is sometimes caused the patient, and the disease which the drug was given to cure may disappear, but only to reappear in a new form, such as skin diseases, ulcers, painful diseased joints, and sometimes in a more dangerous and deadly form. The liver, heart, and brain are frequently affected by drugs, and often all these organs are burdened with disease, and the unfortunate subjects, if they live, are invalids for life, wearily dragging out a miserable existence. Oh, how much that poisonous drug cost! If it did not cost the life, it cost quite too much. Nature has been crippled in all her efforts. The whole machinery is out of order, and at a future period in life, when these fine works which have been injured are to be relied upon to act a more important part in union with all the fine works of nature's machinery, they cannot readily and strongly perform their labor, and the whole system feels the lack. These organs, which should be in a healthy condition, are enfeebled. The blood becomes impure. Nature keeps struggling, and the patient suffers with different ailments until there is a sudden breaking down in her efforts and death follows. There are more who die from the use of drugs than all who could have died of disease had nature been left to do her own work. These this these statements showing us the result of drug use should let us sit up and take notice as to what we are putting into the body that God has made us steward of. This is a revolutionary statement, but nonetheless, it is a true statement coming from the Lord through his servant to us. There are more who die from the use of drugs than all who could have died of disease had nature been left to do her own work. Very many lives have been sacrificed by physicians administering drugs for unknown diseases. They have no real knowledge of the exact disease which afflicts the patient, but physicians are expected to know in a moment what to do, and unless they act at once, as though they understood the disease perfectly, they are considered by impatient friends and by the sick as incompetent physicians. Therefore, to gratify erroneous opinions of the sick and their friends, medicine must be administered, experiments and tests tried to cure the patient of the disease of which they have no real knowledge. Nature is loaded with poisonous drugs which she cannot expel from the system. The physicians themselves are often convinced that they have used powerful medicines for a disease which did not exist, and death was the consequence. Physicians are censorable, but they are not the only ones at fault. The sick themselves, if they would be patient, diet, and suffer a little, and give nature time to rally, would recover much sooner without the use of any medicine. Nature alone possesses curative powers. Medicines have no power to cure, but will most generally hinder nature in her efforts. She, after all, must do the work of restoring. The sick are in a hurry to get well, and the friends of the sick are impatient. They will have medicine, and if they do not feel that powerful influence upon their systems, their erroneous views lead them to think they should feel. They impatiently change for another physician. The change often increases the evil. They go through a course of medicine equally as dangerous as the first and more fatal because the two treatments do not agree and the system is poisoned beyond remedy. But many have never experienced the beneficial effects of water and are afraid to use one of heaven's greatest blessings. Water has been refused persons suffering with burning fevers through fear that it would injure them. If in their fevered state water had been given them to drink freely, and applications had also been made externally, long days and nights of suffering would have been saved, and many precious lives spared. But thousands have died with raging fevers, consuming them until the fuel which fed the fever was burnt up, the vitals consumed, and have died in the greatest agony without being permitted to have water to allay their burning thirst. Water, which is allowed a senseless building to put out the raging elements, is not allowed human beings to put out the fire which is consuming the vitals. So this has been Read and Talk Health. I will stop there for now. A lot of things for us to consider, but may the Lord bless the words and bless those who hear and take heed to these that the Lord has provided. And remember that the Lord wants us to prosper and be in health, even as our soul prospereth. So these things may be new to us. They may sound revolutionary because we have grown up to think that the drug is the answer to our problems. But God sees things differently. May the Lord bless you. Join me next time for Read and Talk